Did you know that at its absolute zenith, the British Empire covered a quarter of the Earth's land surface? A quite staggering thought. It governed nearly a quarter of the world's population too. This led to that rather famous, and just a little bit smug, boast: the sun never sets on the British Empire. And it was, for a time, geographically true. As the sun dipped below the horizon in the Caribbean, it was already climbing into the morning sky over India. It was an empire of truly global proportions, a colossal patchwork of dominions, colonies, protectorates, mandates, stitched together across every conceivable time zone. How on earth did a small, damp island off the coast of mainland Europe manage such a feat? It's a story of ambition, accident, greed, and genius, a tale that shaped the very world we inhabit today. In the 16th century, if you were a betting person, you wouldn't have put your money on England. The real global heavyweights were Spain and Portugal, their galleons crisscrossing the Atlantic, laden with gold and silver from the New World. England was a rather peripheral nation, nursing its Protestant Reformation, eyeing its Catholic neighbours with envy and suspicion. The first stirrings of empire weren't a grand state plan. They were ad hoc, driven by merchants, adventurers, privateers. Men like Sir Francis Drake. Drake, hero to English, pirate to Spanish. These ventures were about trade and opportunistic theft. English sailors sought new routes to the Spice Islands. They sought valuable goods, spices, silk, tea. Charters that created regional trade monopolies. This blended private greed with national interest. The Crown didn't have to foot the bill, but it could reap rewards through customs duties and global presence. You can't have trade without ships, and you can't protect ships without a navy. The sea becomes the central character. Britain's island status turned into its greatest strength. A powerful Royal Navy was gradually built, wooden walls protecting security and commerce. Control of sea lanes let Britain move goods, transport soldiers, project power. Victory over the Spanish Armada in 1588 was a huge psychological boost. But the long 18th century naval wars against France and the Dutch cemented maritime supremacy. Naval power allowed establishment of the first colonies. In North America and the Caribbean, settlers sought land, religious freedom, wealth. Now we must turn our attention to India, for the story of the British in India is perhaps the most extraordinary chapter in the entire imperial saga. It wasn't the British state that conquered India, not at first. It was a private company, the Honourable East India Company. Imagine a modern corporation, a tech giant, an oil company, fielding its own private army, signing treaties, governing hundreds of millions. It seems fantastical. Yet, that is precisely what happened. The company began in 1600 as a trading venture. Spices, cotton, indigo. It built trading posts or factories, Surat, Madras, Calcutta, with Mughal permission. For over a century, the company was mainly commercial but heavily armed. As the Mughal Empire fractured in the 18th century, a power vacuum emerged. Led by men like Robert Clive, the company began to play politics. It made alliances with local princes, offered its European-trained troops in exchange for trading rights and territory. The pivotal moment, 1757, the Battle of Plassey. A small company force defeated the Nawab of Bengal, handing the province's riches to the company. The East India Company morphed from traders into rulers. Corporate colonialism was born. By the late 19th century, the empire had reached its magnificent, sprawling peak. At the heart of it all lay India, the jewel in the crown. It was more than just a colony. It was the cornerstone. Army, market, prestige. They built railways, as well as canals, schools, and courts, while governing a vast, stratified society. But the empire was a global affair. In Africa, the scramble saw Britain claim a huge swathe of territory, from Egypt in the north down to South Africa, the dream of Cape to Cairo. This led to the acquisition of places like Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Rhodesia. Each had its purpose: strategy, gold and diamonds, or agriculture like cocoa and coffee. Motives mixed. Rivalry with France and Germany, economic greed, and a professed civilizing mission. Missionaries like David Livingstone became heroes, bringing light to the dark continent, an ideology of paternalism that denied colonized cultures and claims to self-rule. Just as the empire expanded, a revolution of steam, iron and coal transformed Britain. New inventions allowed mass production, especially textiles, and turbocharged empire. Britain needed raw materials and vast markets. The empire provided both. It was a ruthlessly self-reinforcing system that discouraged local industrialization. Steamships shrank oceans, telegraph wires tied governors to Whitehall. Whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun, and they have not. Technology made conquest horribly one-sided. Even at its most resplendent, the empire contained the seeds of its own undoing. Like a magnificent but impossibly large porcelain vase, one huge pressure was the very set of ideas Britain championed: liberty, justice, parliamentary democracy. They set up schools and universities teaching English, history, political philosophy. Students read the Magna Carta, the Glorious Revolution, and asked, why can't we have those same rights? That question birthed nationalism. In India, the Indian National Congress was founded in 1885. Resistance was violent too. Uprisings, rebellions, protests. The Boer Wars shocked Britain, prestige damaged, soul-searching at home. Running a global empire was hugely expensive, and the machine drained the treasury. By the early 20th century, new competitors, Germany, the United States, were newer, more efficient. The empire's economic foundations began to erode. The vast still stood, but the cracks were spreading. The two cataclysmic world wars were the primary catalysts. Over 2.5 million soldiers and laborers served from Canada, Australia, India, Africa. Britain emerged financially shattered, transformed from creditor to debtor. The sight of Europe slaughtering itself undermined any claim to moral superiority. The world of 1919 was less deferential to old imperial powers. The Second World War, 1939 to 1945, delivered the final decisive blow. Once again, the empire provided manpower and resources, but the costs were staggering. The swift fall of Singapore shattered the myth of European invincibility. It proved the British could be driven out. Britain was exhausted and dependent on the United States in a redrawn world. Power shifted from London to Washington and Moscow, both opposed to old empires. The US wanted open markets and self-determination. The Soviets backed liberation movements. The long goodbye began with India. In 1947, Britain granted independence, tragically marred by partition into India and Pakistan. If the jewel in the crown could achieve freedom, then so could others. A wave of decolonization swept the empire. Some transitions were peaceful. Where settlers resisted, independence was violent. Kenya's Mau Mau, Rhodesia's UDI until Zimbabwe in 1980. By the late 1960s, the vast majority of the empire had been dismantled. A few territories remained. The final symbolic act was Hong Kong's handover in 1997. In its place emerged the Commonwealth of Nations, a voluntary association. The sun had, at last, set on the British Empire. So, what are we to make of it all? The British Empire is gone, but its ghost lingers everywhere. Its legacy is a fiercely debated mixture of creation, destruction, connection, division. You can see it in language, law, parliamentary democracy, from Canada to India, railways and ports. However, there is a much darker side: slavery, displacement, famine, repression. Borders drawn in London still fuel conflicts. Patterns of dependency and underdevelopment persist. Debates rage over artifacts, apologies, reparations, education and statues. If there is one clear takeaway, it is this: power is transient. The empire rose on trade, technology, confidence, and fell under costs, contradictions, and the universal desire for freedom. No system of power is forever. Change is the only constant. Today's empires become tomorrow's history lessons.